Okay, hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about how we can use Excel to get values associated with the t distribution. So Excel would be in replacement of the t table. Okay, so what I have is go ahead and start by, well, first of all, this tutorial is going to be most useful after you've completed the second set of notes, because I want to start with number one in the notes. The first example where I talk about using the t table, okay? So what I have listed here are the problems that each question had and the corresponding degrees of freedom. All right, and here I'm going to use the space to calculate. So here I kind of have it broken up into colors. So problem number one shows you how to find a t value if you know the probability or area, okay? So I know the area because it tells me we want the probability that t is bigger than t subscript 0, 0.025. Okay, so if you've already followed along with the notes, then you have the picture that I drew. Okay, so what we're going to do is anytime we want to use an Excel formula or feature, we got to start with an equal sign. And I'm going to type t. And I'm going to scroll. You can, as you see how I scroll down this list, it changes what I want. It changes the words of what it's going to give me. Okay, so you're going to read these and find the one that you want. Okay, and the one that we want is t dot inverse. This returns the left-tailed inverse of the student's t. All right, so we're going to click on it. Okay, now the left-tailed inverse. Okay, so we know the area to the right because of this greater than sign is 0.025. So if I want the area to the left, I want 1 minus 0.025, comma, I'm just gonna tap this button because that space is what contains my degrees of freedom for that problem. All right, and you see that we get 2.5706. All right, so this is exactly the same as if we were to go to our chart. Okay, we had degrees of freedom 5. Okay, and we had an upper tail percentage. Ooh, let me get my pen out. An upper tail percentage of 0.025. Okay, and that's the number we got. All right, so the next one. This is wanting you to find the 90th percentile. So that means we want to find T naught such that 90% of the data is below it. Okay, again, if you're wanting to find a T value, then you want this T dot inverse. Okay, so it's going to prompt you for what's the probability. Well, the probability to the left is 0.9, and it's going to prompt you for the degrees of freedom. And 1.4759 is what we got from our chart as well. Okay, so now these two questions, number 2 and number 3, they show you how to find an exact probability or area if you know the t value, okay? So finding exact probabilities is where the t chart falls a little short for us, okay? It doesn't give us exact probabilities. It gives us a range of probabilities, okay? So let's start with these first two. Again, we want to start with equal t, okay? And now I want one of these t dot dist, okay? This returns the left-tailed student's t distribution. This returns the right-tailed student's t distribution, okay? I want to calculate the right tail because this is a greater than sign saying, hey, 2.5, or we want to know what's to the right of 2.5395. Okay, so first it's going to ask you for X. That's going to be, well, what's your T value? 2.5395. And then it's going to ask you for your degrees of freedom. Okay, 0.01. Again, this is what we got in the notes. We got this exactly because it falls exactly on our T chart. All right, this next one. T dot dist, okay? This sign is saying less than now. So now we want the area that's to the left of our negative 1.3277. So now I just want T dot dist. Start with negative 1.3277. That's going to be the T value that we're concerned with. And then it asks us for degrees of freedom. Okay, then it's going to ask you for cumulative true or false. Okay, and we always want to go ahead and say true. Cumulative means it's going to tell us starting at like negative 1,000 all the way up to negative 1.3277. Okay, so it's going to just cumulative, it's just going to give me all of the area that's less than negative 1.3277. Okay, and again, this was one that we got from our chart because that number lies perfectly on our chart. Okay, number 3. Number 3A is the first one where we have an in-between probability. When we did this in our notes based off the table, we got that the probability should be somewhere between 3% and 4%. Let's see if we get that. Okay, greater than sign, right-tailed, so we want t.dist.rt for right, 1.87, and my degrees of freedom. 0.0362, okay, or 3.62%. Awesome. That is somewhere between 3% and 4%. Okay, with this next one in our notes, we got that it should be somewhere between 0.1 and 0.15, so 10% and 15%. All right, I'm going to start with t.dist, okay? Now this is less than, so I want to return the left-tailed student's t-distribution. Negative 1.197, my degrees of freedom, and I want to say true, it is cumulative. Okay, 12.09%, somewhere between 0.1 and 0.15. Awesome. Okay, these last two, number 4, shows you how to find the table value you will use to calculate a confidence interval, okay? So something we want to calculate before we calculate the confidence interval is we need to know what area is in the tail, okay? And how we're going to do that is we're going to start by taking this 95% and subtracting it from 1. Then we have to divide it by 2 because we have 2 tails for it to belong to. 0.025. Okay. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to start my t.dist, and you can do left tail or right tail in this case because we have 0.025 to the left on the lower end and 0.025 up above on the upper end. Again, if you're looking along with your notes that have already been completed and you're looking at these pictures, I think it can be very helpful. So I'm going to do t.dist, and I'm going to say, okay, I want, not t.dist, I want t inverse. So this is going to give me the left-tailed inverse of the student's t-distribution. This is going to give me the table value I want. Okay, so now I have to it prompts me to type in a probability. That's how I knew I was in the wrong one before, because it didn't ask me for a probability. I have a probability to input 0.025. And my degrees of freedom is 17. And so it's going to give you the negative because we're on the left tail. So the negative or the positive is going to be appropriate to type into the confidence interval formula. Remember, if you recall what the confidence formula is, we have x bar plus or minus a table value times s over the square root of n, okay? So whether we add or subtract a negative or positive number, we're still going to get the same lower bound and the same upper bound. Okay, let's do this 90%. So again, I want to start off with saying 1 minus my 90%. And I want to divide that by 2, and it gives me 0.05. So now 0.05 is the area to the left, and 0.025 is also going to be in the upper tail, the area to the right. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to type in t.inverse, and I'm going to start with my probability, okay? And then it's going to ask me for my degrees of freedom. And you get negative 1.7396. So again, with these last two, the number we reported came from the upper tail, the right tail. So we reported positive numbers, okay? Doesn't matter which way you plug it in, just as long as that base number is right. Okay, so I hope this helped you know how to use Excel. There will be a couple math problems, or I should say homework problems, next week that will ask you to calculate an exact p-value, okay? So that's what we did right here. We calculated an exact p-value. All right, you guys have a good one.